Welcome to the Skinwalker Debrief. I'm your host, TJ Allard, and I'm also one of the executive producers on the new television series on history called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. I'm joined each week by Jason McClellan and Maureen Elsberry, and together we'll dissect each episode and give you a little bit more insight and background into the show. Jason's been exploring all things strange for more than a decade. He's appeared on Nat Geo, Sci-Fi, and History, and he's the author of Only Weirdos See UFOs, an introduction to the public misperception of unidentified aerial phenomenon and extraterrestrial life. Maureen is a journalist, researcher, and podcaster specializing in the anomalous. She starred in the docu-series Uncovering Aliens on Animal Planet and served as an ambassador for the Science Channel's Are We Alone initiative. And tonight, our special guest is none other than Bryant Dragon Arnold, head of security at Skinwalker Ranch. Bryant, thank you for joining us, or should we call you Dragon? Which is it?
You can call me whatever you'd like, to be honest.
That leaves it wide open.
I've been called much worse than either of those things.
All right, I'm sure a lot of people want to know. Can you tell us how you got the nickname Dragon?
Well, it's an interesting story. You know, it's not a Step Brothers type thing where I introduce myself. My name's Bryant, but call me Dragon. You know, that type of a thing. It actually came from someone that has quite an online presence and has been an enthusiast of the ranch for a long time. And when Brandon took over ownership, he actually got permission to actually be on the ranch without trespassing, and came on, and I greeted him at the gate, and he went on his way. And apparently, from what I understand, there was a former security guard under the Bigelow era that some former military guy that had codename Dragon. And so as he was cruising down the road to the ranch, he said, that Dragon, and I guess whoever he was with just affirmed it. So he went on his online presence and said, yeah, that Dragon guy's kind of a jerk, and he was kind of, standoffish and everything. Well, I mean, it's not, I kind of have the resting bitch face thing going on most of the time. So nice. Anyway, he started, he talked about it, and then other people chime in, online, and started telling stories about how they'd been run off the property by me wielding guns and things like that. And so Brandon, loving that whole narrative, started calling me Dragon and referred to me as that to many people, and including, the people that ended up producing the television show. I mean, I know that's how TJ was introduced to me.
Yes, it was.
And it's funny because it's like, Brian, who are you talking about? Dragon is. So anyway, he loved it, started calling me that, and it stuck. And, and then during production, Travis, I mean, let's be honest, Bryant Arnold doesn't really roll off the tongue like Dragon does. So, I wish there was a much cooler, badass story, but that's pretty much how it came to be, and it's just stuck, and so that's where we are.
I think it's a good reflection to say that, like, you didn't make it up yourself, and I think that's what so many people
call me Dragon.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I've seen social media. I took a real beating after the first episode, and I'm like, look, I didn't give myself a nickname.
Right.
It just organically happened, and that's where we're at. So we'll go with it.
Hey, it works, man. It works. And like I said, I think, this is something you just, heck with it. Make T-shirts and sell them. Dragon. Done.
I don't know if you could get some sort of treasure pile, but of mysterious things that then have some sort of Dragon T-shirt. It would be.
Oh, I like.
There you go.
Like hoarding, like circling it, like smog.
Like alien skulls underneath you, and nice. I don't know, military gear.
You're all hired to get my swag for the next alien con. Something like that.
Nice,
perfect.
So, Bryant, where are you right now?
I am in the command center, coming live from Skinwalker Ranch. So,
awesome.
Yep. Took a little bit of a break from chasing people off, and we've had a lot of people ever since the show has aired that are very curious. And, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. But, I was excited. I appreciate our friendship, DJ, and so, I was more than happy to join. And and talk with you guys. And I've enjoyed the first 2 episodes. I've watched both of your podcast. I mean, both of your, the YouTube version of it, of the first 2, and you guys seem like solid folks, and so I said,
they are
be nice, but I'll come on.
Oh, they definitely are. Of course they go. No, this is great. I really appreciate you joining us. I know that maybe Jason and Maureen don't. No, of course they do. But no, I think this is great. I think we'd love to just let's keep this going. Let's hope this just continues and we just keep bringing you on whenever we can, and that's it's awesome. Sure. So let's do this. So what we did last week and what we'll do again, I think, kind of recapping what happened at the end of week 2. So for those who don't know, when I say week 2, I mean the television show on history, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. So last week's episode, week 2, is called Night Vision. And so what we'll do is every week we kind of go and recap what had happened in the previous week. And so a couple of the big points that I picked out of last week's recap would be so the glow and the flicker. So, I mean, those things are kind of amazing to me. And I don't know what you guys think. I'd love to hear some thoughts and opinions on what you guys think that stuff is. And I know we can get insight from Bryant as well. So what do you guys think? Give me some thoughts.
I'm still stuck on a lot of the geology stuff. So until we get to the root of that, I think that my mind is kind of stuck in that kind of route. There's got to be some sort of natural geological explanation for what is causing different sorts of anomalies. I mean, it's a little different when you have a full beam of light coming down. But yeah, I'm still let's dig into that geology. But Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, same as last week. I mean, it's some weird stuff, and yeah, we have some other potential avenues to explore with geology, like Maureen said. But when it comes down to it, a lot of this stuff is just plainly weird as shit.
Dragon, can you give us any insight into the weird as shit aspect of things?
I agree with Jason. I mean,
nice.
You have amongst our scientists, 3 PhDs and a bunch of stuff, and they're kind of saying, the same type of thing. What is doing that? When I quote Travis, if I go into a southern accent, I can't help it because I made fun.
It's understandable.
The whole time he was here with it, but yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think that why the Uinta Basin of all places. Because it's not just Skinwalker Ranch. Mm-hmm. I mean, the basin itself, it's got the nickname of UFO Alley, really, right, because of so many different occurrences and things like that. And it is just that. It's a basin. I mean, if you look at it aerially, it almost looks like a big satellite dish. Mm-hmm. And so I know that there are some minerals and elements here that are found really only here and then very other few places on Earth, not to get too technical, I've listened to scientists way too much. But there's an element called asphaltium, which is what is used for all of your asphalt pavement roads and things like that. And this basin is the main deposit of it on all the planet. And it's, one of those things where I don't know if it has something to do with that, along with, the basin using itself almost like a lens or something, focusing energy or whatever it may be. I don't know exactly. It's stuff that we've speculated on, but I don't think that Maureen is off either. That I think a lot of elements have had to come together, and I would say that probably the geology has a big part in that.
Absolutely. I think Maureen hit it last week. She touched on that, right, Maureen? You mentioned about the whole basin, not just the ranch.
Right, and I think that's so important to acknowledge and tell people, because the stuff's been going on around that area for a long time, and it's not centered to some random picks and fences that were put up in a certain area and then deemed a ranch. It's something bigger than that. So it's always good to point that out, in my opinion.
Well,
absolutely.
And possibly an explanation is if you look at the basin and where the ranch sits, it almost sits dead center of the Uinta Basin. It's, so who knows? Maybe that's why this particular piece of property seems to be, a focal point. But I think it's also because it has been owned privately and studied. So there could be all this stuff happening all over the place, but it doesn't get the notoriety that the ranch does.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, I think that the Ute reservation areas surrounding it, a lot of it, and so why they're much more, private and believe their own culture and studies, and it's amazing, but they're not going to be pulling a ton of scientific equipment onto their property because that's not, native ways. So,
no,
right.
I mean, I don't want to get too far away from the previous episodes, but I was just thinking of it in Dragon. You brought it up. Oh, Dragon. See, I'm even stuck calling you Dragon. I've gotten so used to it over the years.
I've gotten used to it, strangely enough.
Right. So I wanted to, we were talking about this, and something that you could shed some light on. I didn't want to, talk in detail about it before, but the case. Can you tell us about the case and the mag?
Oh, there we go.
Nice.
No, that's not the case. But I
thought it was a black Pelican case.
I know that Jason loves Pelican cases.
Yeah.
So
I love Pelican cases.
So that was kind of the question. Obviously the first episode, it left everyone wondering what was in the case. And when they opened it up, and it was, some people want a magnet, right? Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is that Pelican case has nothing to do as far as a dramatic reveal. I mean, it turned out that way on the TV show, but that magnet that's in there, that neodymium magnet or rare earth magnet for people that, don't know the technical term, it is extremely dangerous and powerful. I was talking to Eric Bard, our principal investigator, about it. And I mentioned to him that was one of the big questions. And he actually, because he's Eric, he said, let me put it this way. That thing is dangerous. If you attach that to a piece of iron, the force it takes to remove that is over 1,700 pounds of pulling force. And the thing is we have two. So you saw in the episode when he kind of gave the demonstration with the phone and things like that, he has that one in that aluminum jig so that he could, manipulate it correctly and things like that. If those two magnets came together, first off, if anyone's body parts was in between that, it would absolutely pulverize them. And if they stuck together, you'd never get them apart, ever. So, for example, Maureen, if I wanted to play a really bad prank on you and stuck it to your car, you'd never get it off. And so, I won't. So we're safe there. But I'm just saying, ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason it is in that case with all that insulation is because it is dangerous. I can take my car keys and hold it over the top of the case, and it'll suck my hand down onto the case. So it's strictly a safety thing. Plus, we have so much electronic equipment around here, and you know what batteries do to electronics.
Right.
So, really, I mean, at the end of the day, Eric told me, he's like, if I would have had a bigger case, I would have had it in that. So, and that's how he would have answered too.
I think you just
maybe, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, really, I know that a lot of people were like, "You have this. It's a magnet, for heaven's sakes." But no, it is an extremely, extremely powerful magnet. You could pick up a refrigerator with if it was attached to something. So really, it was a safety protocol more than anything, and that kind of, I guess, hopefully answers the whole Pelican case.
Definitely. I think that's going to answer a lot of questions that were out there. I mean, I feel like that was a pretty good answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to throw it out there, but it's like, I think that a lot of people didn't think of that as a potential thing. So thank you for clearing that up. Yeah. Appreciate that. So, we talked about the magnet. Now we got, besides the flicker and glow, we talked about potentially, geological. That damn beam, the beam that you can't see with your eyes, but you can see it in infrared. Come on, you guys. Give me thoughts. What do you guys think?
I have no explanation for that, to be honest. I could make something up, but it would be total bullshit, so I don't want to.
Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we speculated last week, but I've got nothing. I mean, from an investigator standpoint, you always want to physically be there. You want to experience it for yourself because experiencing makes it real for you. It's easy for people watching a TV show, for me being a spectator right now and seeing something and thinking, oh yeah, well, it could be this, this, or this. I wasn't there. These guys are there, and this isn't the only time that they've seen it, right? So, I mean, for somebody who hasn't experienced that personally, I think that would change everything for me in terms of, how much weight I give it and how like bizarre it is to me and how just confounded I am. And just as a spectator, I'm already that way. So I've got nothing.
And I think, so a question, because I haven't watched the video a million times or anything.
Right.
Was it pretty even in size, or did it expand, or either at the top or the bottom anywhere?
Bryant, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So, fortunately I watched last week's and some of your, theories on what it was, which, were good. And we've had to debunk so many crazy light effects on the ranch due to, traffic in the distance, or, people with flashlights and things like that.
Or used car lots. I think someone was saying, it's a used car lot.
That was Travis when it showed that graphic of that beam. So this one actually, the way that it appeared on the infrared was if it was coming from right near kind of where homestead number 2 is, which is around the corner, which there's no possible way there's any traffic over there. So, the whole headlight reflection thing, and not a thing. And it did. It seemed like it was a very uniform width. It didn't seem like it was wider at the bottom or at the top, and appeared as if it was coming from the ground going up. I mean, Travis used, I think he used the terminology, it looks like it's tracking something.
Yeah.
I don't know, what he was thinking and whatnot, but they definitely had all of us, including the scientists, absolutely stumped as to what it could be. And they reviewed that footage over and over. And because that's the thing I love about Eric Bard, is he wants to debunk everything first and foremost, because he's like, before he'll put anything out there as unusual or strange, he is going to go through painstakingly, just effortless, a ton of effort to try and debunk what it is. I mean, you should see what a snowflake being blown in the wind under infrared light looks like. You would swear it is like the most spectacular UFO, orb thing ever. In fact, we've even, we've called them snorbs because there's so many of them. But light snowflake under infrared, and so it's taking a lot of, learning what is actually there and natural versus things that we absolutely have gone through everything to try and figure out what it is before we say, okay, that is strange or that's unusual. Because you know how it is. How many times have you seen dirt on a camera lens that people swear is orbs floating up?
Jason and I can definitely attest to that, because we've dealt with that our whole career in this field, and we used to get called Scully and Scully because they'd yell at us for debunking. But it's the same thing. It's ruling out what it could possibly be before you decide it's something anomalous.
Right.
And Eric doesn't play around. I always say, Eric, you're a curmudgeon. He just wants to throw cold water on every theory that there is. And
we call him the angry little elf, is what we call him.
You're an angry elf. You must be from the South Pole. No, I'll never forget. I was home for the holidays, and that one, and I'm calling it an iconic image because I love that one image where the infrared light is coming, straight up. And what I found so fascinating is that there's no bleed from that light. And what I mean by that is not dissipating. It doesn't get lesser as it kind of goes outward. It's literally, it looks like a beam. And I was home for the holidays, and he sent me that picture. This was December 23rd. So it's like, he's like, look at this. And I'm looking at this tower. And I was like, okay, cool. What is it? And he's like, your naked eye can't see that. I'm like, wait, what? And then it becomes this, no way. And so I think it frustrated him a lot at that time. When the date stamp is on there, that was real time. He definitely had gotten frustrated from that. And I know that he spent a lot of time, getting to the bottom of that. But he's, the angry elf. I love it. Yeah. I hadn't heard that one from him. That's awesome.
Well, probably going to be angrier elf because I shouted him for it, but we'll.
Dragon versus the angry elf.
Yeah.
That sounds like an elf.
The thing
That's a
about
good
Eric,
T-shirt.
He's one of my favorite people. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. I mean, it's unbelievable. So we're lucky, really lucky to have him because of that very reason. He is 100%, his mantra, and you've heard it before, is I'm not here to believe or disbelieve, I'm here to observe. Yep. And so before he puts anything out there, ever, he is going to go through every last way of proving it to be something normal before he's even willing to say that's even interesting or strange.
Right. Interesting, yeah. For him to say interesting, that's a big step. Like, a lot of times he'll be like, and he'll try to explain things away. And it's like, okay, well, you used that thing called science. No, it's not that, you explained it. But, and I was saying it before, and I'm sure you'd heard it, Bryant, like, he has a really good way of breaking things down so people can understand. And we'll get more of that. I feel like, you're going to see more of Eric's personality that way come out. He's just genuinely awesome. I mean, I can't say enough good things about him. Yeah. So it's, yeah. I mean, I want to just say so many things, and it's like, oh, I can't yet. It's, anyway.
I know I've probably already said stuff that's going to get me in trouble, but whatever.
Are you getting any text messages right now from Brandon?
I'm not paying attention.
Nice. So if you lose power or anything, kind of like I did in our first episode, we might know why.
Just assume it's been shut down.
Exactly.
So, but then, okay.
The thing is Brandon is, I've known Brandon for 28 years. And you know what? He is so excited, and he genuinely is excited just to allow people to see what's going on at the ranch, because it's such, it's his passion. It's his toy. He doesn't, he's not out for monetary gain or anything. He doesn't need it. It literally is his science project. And I've told him on many occasions he's like the most successful 17-year-old kid I've ever met, because that's his passion and excitement for things like this. So that's, that's what's been cool. And yeah, he's all about, you know what, if we actually find stuff, we want people to know about it. We're not going to hide it away, or, that's what we're here for.
And he's been super genuine about a lot of this stuff. And I remember, first conversations I'd had with him, it was like, you want to share, like he really wanted to share his journey in the exploration with other people. I mean, it's the complete opposite of the Bigelow era, where it was just like, no, let me hoard all the data and keep it to myself. Brandon is like, look, I want other people to join me on this journey. And I was really impressed with the fact that, like, here's someone who has the resources to do something that millions of people would love to know the answer to, or love to do. Go out there in those kick-ass camping trips with, like, tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear. It's like, he's doing it and he's sharing that with people. And it's like, I think people really appreciate that fact. And I know that people talk about it's on television and it's manufactured. No, it's not. So one of the great things I want to tell people when developing the show, what was so great was what is happening at the ranch was happening regardless of a television show happening. So this was going on. There was no TV show happening. They were doing this already. And that's why this show really got the interest of the network, because it's genuine. There's no casting. There's nothing like that. It was like, oh, we could just plug in some cameras and film what they're doing. Well, then shit, this is great. They're doing all the hard work. We're just videotaping stuff. So all of this was already happening. And I think that's something that's really important to get out there. Like, this wasn't cast. This wasn't put together. I mean, Brian, you can attest to this. And Jason, please. Yeah.
Yes, I can, because I was called a really bad actor after the first episode.
No.
Like, well, that's good. That's good, because that is not what I am.
That's a very good compliment, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
None of us are.
Right? But no, sharing this with people so people can actually see what's going on is kind of awesome. It's never been done before, so.
Well, and that kind of lends to the fact, look, it's been our little core group from the beginning. I know there's been questions as to, why is the security guy sitting at the table talking about this kind of stuff and science? Well, just because, we all pitch in and do pretty much everything. We're small, we're a small group. We're really tight. We call ourselves the ranch family.
No, you guys are a ranch family. You are a family.
And, we all wear, different hats depending on what's needed. Mine happens to be black, and I have the quote title of head of security because that's, part of what I do. But, setting up equipment, helping with scientific experiments. In fact, just today I was helping Eric, try and figure out something that he's trying to do with some of the surveillance, to help out and add another element to things and things like that. It's just, we all pitch in, and, I've told TJ this, the one thing that Brandon values more in this world than, finances or whatever is, it's two things, trust and loyalty, and he wants people he can trust and he knows are loyal to him. And so, like I said, I've known him for a better part of my life, and he trusts me, and he gave me the mandate and said, don't let people dig. So that's... I took a beating for that one too. I know. So
and we discussed that in the first episode.
I was thinking we could get into this stuff at the end, but since you just brought it up, at the end of this episode, but no, this is great. So tell us about that. Like that wasn't, you were watching his back, right? He told you no digging, and you were just doing what the guy said. Like this is your job to uphold these, his mandates. I mean, it wasn't like it was, again, it's not something manufactured, like legit. You didn't want people to dig because people got hurt, as we see.
The thing about it is, anyone that knows me, I am like the least superstitious person you'll meet. And so when I came onto the ranch, I was like, I like to say I was kind of an agnostic toward all of this stuff. I told Brandon he was crazy. I'm like, you're buying 512 acres of dirt for you in a basin, and you don't even own a pair of jeans to wear out there. I mean, he legitimately doesn't.
Or sneakers.
And so, I said, sure, I'll go out and help you out, do some things, and so on and so forth. And so, I didn't really know a bunch of stories about the ranch or necessarily think that it was a thing. But, experiencing what happened with Tom, and then, the previous, narrative that came along with things. And, I just kind of took it for his word. You need to keep people in line. And one of the things that, could cause trouble is, digging. And, one other element that people don't talk about is, we're surrounded by Native American land here. And this wasn't always owned privately. Prior to, the Myers and things like that, I'm sure that, the Native Americans roamed. So out of respect for that too, I mean, we don't know necessarily what's underneath the ground. There could be, graves, there could be all different kinds of things. So that's why we really want to try to use non-invasive things as opposed to, hey, we're going to go out and dig holes because they said that that's what triggers crazy stuff to happen. So you combine all those things and the mandate that, look, you're going to get a lot of these guys that are excited and want to go do a whole bunch of stuff, but I need you to kind of be the bad guy, if you will, and keep everyone in line because I don't want people getting hurt first and foremost, and the liability that goes along with that and everything else. So that's kind of where that all came from.
Jason and Maureen, like, is this something that you would say, is unprecedented in the fact that someone is sharing like this, like Brandon sharing these experiments and whatnot, or is there kind of something he can look to, or we can look to say like, okay, here's the precedence that's been set in the past about people sharing info and whatnot, or is this kind of a unique situation?
I think that it's all over the board. So you have a lot of people that are on the side where they want to share all the info and are excited to do so, and sometimes to a fault, where they're presenting information that hasn't been reviewed and is not very scientific, and that's a huge problem. And then you have situations like you mentioned with Bigelow, and I actually saw some people asking about this based on this last episode, where at the intro you say, or the narrator says, Bigelow never found anything or something like that, and then you go to which is, we all know it's not necessarily true, but then it goes on to say later, I think Brandon even said it, like he just wouldn't share the information. We don't know what happened with a lot of that. And that's more of the story, is Bigelow is kind of tends to hold that information onto his own. And we know that for both his aerospace company and Skinwalker Ranch as well. So it's not that nobody would ever share data. There's plenty of people that research this kind of thing that share all of their findings very well documented and scientifically. But yeah, it's just It's a ball game, I guess you could say.
We live in a society.
Exactly.
No, Jason, what do you think? Man? Weigh in on this. Like, come on. I mean, I know you are very analytical as well. Like, you are always breaking stuff down, and sometimes when I talk with Jason, by the way, he makes me feel like he's not listening because he doesn't respond or like do head nods or anything like that or smile or be like,
Welcome
he just looks,
to my life.
right. It's so funny because he looks at you like, yeah, dude. Yep. I'm like, wait, what? I wasn't even asking a yes or no question. I don't understand.
You have no idea the conversations that's going on in my head.
Right.
You don't want to
monkeys.
know. No. I mean, certainly with Skinwalker, with the ranch itself, this is fantastic. This is something new that we haven't had before. We sort of got some layers peeled back with George Knapp and Colin Kelleher to a very limited degree. Because they were bound by NDAs. They were restricted from what information they shared. And even in recent years, when partnering up with Jeremy Corbell, George was able to get a little more of his stuff out about the ranch. But even that, still, he was heavily restricted on what he could share. So now, Brandon just wants to get this information out, wants to share it with everybody, but at the same time seems to be doing it responsibly. I like that. And like Brian said, with people on the team that have been selected for their skill sets, and people like Eric who are not there to push forward, the lore of the ranch. People are there to find answers, to find the truth. So that's really good to see. And from an investigation standpoint, this is kind of, unusual when it comes to the world of paranormal. Right.
Well, I mean, this is great. I love that we're able to talk about this more openly than people seem to have been doing in the past. But I want to. I mean, we could talk for. God, we can go on for hours. Honestly,
we could, but we should probably get to episode.
Let's move on. Yeah. Let's move on to episode 3. I mean, this is just we haven't even gotten to episode 3 yet. All right, and we've just been Chattersons over here. So, all right. So episode 3 starts off, and you got the flashback of the where they saw the glow and the flicker and the beam, and then Tom's injury. So we come back into the B block where we have Tom talking about his injuries, and he talks about shadow people or what he had seen. They kind of reference that stuff, and then he comes back from the hospital. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the reactions that we had because there's a lot of backstory there, and Bryant, you and I had spoken about this. There's a lot of backstory that goes on there that we really just gloss over because we haven't really developed or given people a lot of insight into Jim Morse. And Jim, like I think I had said in episode 1, like Jim, like my son calls, you guys saw my son earlier, like my son calls him Uncle Jim. Like Jim's one of the
That's what we all call him.
Right, exactly. Like he's one of the biggest hearted people, and it's like, man, and to see what happens to him and to see his reaction, and we have yet to have any kind of explanation as to why he did. I don't want to go too deep into that, but like Bryant said, they're a family. These guys are a family. They love each other. They know each other for years. It's like they all got each other's backs. And so, to getting past that part, like the tight connections and all of that, we got it. Now, Tom's injuries, he seems to be okay, but he's definitely scared, definitely spooked from it. And I know, Bryant, you could probably give us some insight into that. What was going on with him when he came back, and even the night of, when you had to take him. I mean, you guys, threw him in the in the vehicle and just kind of like took off. Like, what was going on? Like, give us some insight that we didn't see on the show, if you could.
Well, I mean, I know they give a brief description of Tom's injury, but I mean, it truly was life-threatening. So his original, initial injury, and it was, a scary thing. And so the fact that he even wanted to come back onto the ranch was surprising to pretty much everybody. But Tom's kind of a head first into things type of a guy. And so, after having met Travis and talked about, digging and Tom's injury and everything, and it kind of looked at as, that's in the past type of thing. So the fact that we were out there and, Tom is a tough dude. I just want you guys to know that he's one of the toughest guys that I know. I mean, that guy is like scary sometimes because he'll go running headlong into whatever.
He's also a black belt in what martial art is he a black belt?
I don't know, but
is it taekwondo, jiu-jitsu? I can't remember off the top of my
head.
So
he's the actual dragon.
He is.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Well, I think I'm getting a bad connection now. No, Tom's he really is, and we rely on him heavily for all kinds of stuff. So the fact that he would, it scared him bad enough because he did. I really think that we were holding that reflector board, and I don't know if that focused the RF. It's all speculation as far as what triggered it. I think it's kind of like the way I look at it is, once somebody is injured, like say a knee or something, you're way more susceptible to that type of an injury again. And it affects some people differently. So, the fact that he started complaining and that he had pain in the back of his head, it was like, okay, all bets are off. We're getting you out of here because we're not going to stick around and see what happens. I don't care what's going on. I don't care if there's a TV show filming. I don't care if we're seeing crazy things. We're getting you straight away out of here. And so, you could tell it scared him a little bit. And so, we got him out of there as quickly as possible. I'm glad that, he didn't have a much longer exposure because I begin to wonder that after his first injury, if he maybe felt something, but was just like, yeah, whatever, so luckily he was, willing to say, you know what, something's not right. I need to get out of here because I know it startled him because he literally, he talks about to this day, he still has, side effects from his original injury. And, I'll let him talk about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Not my place. But, yeah, it was definitely a scary thing. And, we wanted to get him out of there as quickly as possible. And what they didn't show is, when we had him back here in the command center, he was like, no, I think if I just lay down for a little bit, I'll be
Tom.
okay. And, I think I'll be fine. And we just said, no, you've got to get out. And luckily, Jim Segala was there, and Jim was brought in, initially to take a look at Tom's injuries because just the normal medical doctors didn't have an explanation for what happened to him. So it was definitely a scary thing, and it was an emotional thing for all of us, and as you touched on, TJ, Tom and Jim have a really tight relationship. They're like almost like a brother or a father-son type relationship. And at the end of the day, Tom would have never even been part of this had Jim not decided to stay at Tom's motel when he first was, helping Brandon, launching this sort of thing, and met him, found out he was a contractor, had a skill set, and brought him out. So he feels a little bit even more responsible just due to the fact that he exposed Tom to the ranch in the first place. And so, there was a lot of that emotion that was shown because that was the first he had heard of it. And so, yeah, it was definitely a scary deal.
And I want to leave it open, because, for those, we haven't even said it yet, but Tom will be here with us next week. And Jim and I have been going back and forth, so hopefully we can get something scheduled where Jim can get on here as well and tell us, because I don't want to speak for them. I want them to tell their stories on their own. But thank you. I mean, I'm glad you were able to, give us some insight into it. I appreciate that. And I think it's going to go a long way. People are going to, understand there's people here. It's not just a television show. These are real people. It's really happening. And one thing before we go on, keep moving forward, the one thing that really gets me, and I'm sure, Jason, Maureen, you guys have seen this before, it's like one of the big comments you see online a lot is that, well, if there was something that really happened, something important, well, we'd know about it by now. It'd be in the news. And what I always want to tell these people is, are you aware of what an NDA is? If this got to the news, people may not work again. Television is a very small industry. And if you're the one who's got a big mouth and starts talking, guess what you're not doing anymore? You're not working. And no one's going to trust you or hire you. So to all those naysayers that are saying this is, we would know about it if it was important. No, you wouldn't know about it if it was important because people aren't talking about it. That's their job. Bryant, this. We've talked about this before.
My kids are loving. I have 3 boys, and they're loving this show because they actually get to see what's going on. They've asked me, and I really same thing. I'm under a strict non-disclosure agreement, and I haven't even been able to tell my closest, my people, my kids, things like that. So,
right. If it leaks out, if it gets out, then you know what? It's kind of like, there's repercussions to that. And so I want people to understand this is a real thing. So, as we go on, so we get, hopefully we'll get, Tom will be here next week, and then hopefully get Jim in here to talk more about that. But so I want to go to this because this is something that just happened, and it has happened in the past. And so when we were continuing on with the show, and we get to the B block, and so we have a drone, and you make that comment, it's a $35,000 drone. It's not a joke. This is a real thing. This is a big boy's toys, and the batteries die, or I'm sorry, no, we can't get a signal, right?
Yeah.
Please, you guys. So we talked about this. I asked Maureen last week. I think I asked Jason as well. What is the theory behind this? And it's not. I don't want to go to the, it's somebody sucking your soul or some entity sucking the energy out of the batteries. I don't want to make that jump. I mean, I understand people want to keep that open mind and stuff, but what you guys have said to me, maybe it's geological, maybe it's magnetic, whatever. But please, could you guys speak to this for me? I mean, all of you. I want to hear what everyone has to say about this. Seriously.
Go for it, Jason.
I've
got nothing new to add.
Of course,
since last
come
week.
on, man.
No,
I mean, why? I got to tell you. I'm sorry. I got to say this because Jason. I feel like I want to put one of those. Remember when you were kids? Well, when I was a kid, anyway. They used to have those strips you would put across your forehead that would tell your temperature. Remember that? That was before people did the laser beam thing or the under the tongue when they were doing the under tongue. I'm like, I want to put that on Jason, and you can see what he's thinking, like one of those scrollers, on the bottom of the screen. This is what Jason's thinking. He's not going to tell us, but this is what's going through his mind right now. And you just did it again. Please tell us what's going on in this hamster wheel thing of yours.
Well, no, there's a lot going on in my head. No, not really. Not much happening right now. But to your point, we discussed this last week, and the theories range from things like the microwave radiation to something with EF frequencies. It could be any number of things. But as someone personally who hasn't tested electronics and seen what these different types of frequencies do to electronics, I don't know if that's a possibility. I just know those are things that have been thrown out there before. And with batteries draining and equipment failure, it's not always consistent. It's not always the same thing. It's not always batteries draining every time. It's not batteries fully draining. It's things shutting off. It's things not operating as they're supposed to. With the drone, we saw the connectivity issue. It's just all the things that don't happen in a consistent manner. So from a scientific standpoint, it's almost impossible to be able to test because you can't repeat it.
I mean, there was a lot of people that mentioned on the fact of, but there was a drone filming the drone, and how come that one didn't die? So, like Jason mentioned, it's not across the board with everything. And two,
I can attest to that. I can attest to our drone died.
Yeah. Oh, it did. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're also out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a lot of crazy stuff that can just happen in general, I believe, with electronics when you're out in the boonies. And even though you've got a very sweet, it seems like, I'm not going to jump to conclusions on what the sort of Wi-Fi setup is to attach all those Bluetooth cameras everywhere around the ranch. You could probably fill us in on that, but that has got to be a lot of energy and craziness going on in some sort of big net or something.
Yes.
So actually,
Bryant, tell us about the camera setup.
Actually, we have painstakingly had to hardwire everything in because just trying to get a Wi-Fi signal to travel around through everything, it's not very good. So I'm hardwired in here because we do have Wi-Fi in here, but for some reason sometimes it just goes up and down all the time. So we've had to hardwire all of our equipment, which is even worse than just being able to use a wireless signal to do it, from a standby, but it's much more stable because we want to be able to make sure that it's not affected because, all those RF signals and radio waves and all that kind of craziness just messes. And there's not, TJ can attest to this because he's been out here. You can get maybe a bar of cell signal if the wind is blowing, It's weird, but like if the wind is blowing a certain direction, you actually can get a bar of cell service. Otherwise, it's a dead zone.
It's true.
There's no cell phone repeaters anywhere near, and so that's why we have to use radios and everything like that, because you just cannot. There's no connectivity there, and that really is the strange thing, because you're right. I mean, he had just had it up in the air, and that drone, speaking to the drone, and took a scope of all the field and everything like that, and then of course we get over near Homestead too,
Shocking.
and the stupid thing won't connect, and it's such a transient thing. That's the frustrating thing about whatever it is that's here, is that it's transient. It's one thing if it's always there and you can go research what's causing it to be there, but it'll be there one day or 1 minute or 1 hour or whatever, and then it's gone, and then it shows up again, and you can go back to study it, and you get absolutely nothing. And, you even saw it in the episode with the RF meter in what we term the sinkhole. It's kind of an underground cave that goes down. Sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And that's really, I think, been the most frustrating thing to the scientists, is it's kind of like, well, I'd really like to study it, but I don't know when the hell it's going to be here.
Right. And that feeds into the idea of it being an intelligent something, like something that is kind of reactionary and reacting to what you're doing, which goes against all, common kind of logic. But it's true. I mean, I've witnessed it. You witnessed it. We're starting to see a bit more of it on the show. And we're going to, I mean, as we get down into that cave and as other things, I mean, I'm not giving anything away that you can't see in the title of an episode. If you look it up, it's not like we're giving any secrets, but so it is something transient, and it is something that, studying is happening. And so more tech issues at Homestead too, like, Bryant, you were just saying, it's not necessarily a thing at Homestead too, because it can follow you or it can shift and go into any other area of the ranch at any point. But then, we decide to, Travis says like, hey, let's use math. Math is the way to go. Let's do some facts and figures and do some math and figure out what the hell to do. And so he breaks out a coffee can, and then we caught a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit online about this guy using a coffee can from the 70s, and yet you got $34,000 drone, coffee can from the 70s. How does this work together? So
actually,
please.
He couldn't even find a coffee can.
There you go.
Coffee
so
comes in
wait, stop
now.
for a second. Hold on. That answers all of Twitter's questions. He couldn't even find a friggin' coffee can, okay? He didn't
it was actually,
pull it out of nowhere.
I think it ended up being dried beans that they ended up buying a can of and dumped those, because he wanted a metal can, and couldn't find a coffee can.
So I mean, Jason. No, it's not useless at all. And I think like Jason and Maureen, I was just about to ask you guys, like, seeing these kind of things that are happening, and yes, it looks analog, so to speak. This is, they're using a coffee can as opposed to this freaking drone. But what precedence has been set? Like, has anyone seen any of this kind of stuff happening that they've, other than some crazy YouTube videos where you see random, like, can somebody speak to this? Can somebody please tell me? Because I don't know enough of the history of the studies that kind of suggest this happens or hasn't happened. Please.
I don't have a lot of knowledge of it. All I could think about was the fact that a lot of people, either use like a Pringle can or a glass to create a radio with your cell phone and sort of amplify a single signal in a certain way. So that's all I thought about, was like, okay, I guess that makes sense why that would like close off certain areas, and you could then sort of narrow your focus down.
Jason, please shed some light on this for me.
Well, this is the advantage of having scientists work on the research, right? Because you're trying things, and yes, it's a TV show, but at the same time, you're doing something, and then you have an idea. You work with what you have, and you try to rig something together to see if you can get the results you're looking for. It's nice when you've got all the gear that you could possibly want to conduct an experiment a perfect way or a laboratory way. But when you're out in the field and things are happening, it helps to have people who are familiar with what they're looking for and the ways in which you can go about possibly, getting some data to work with. And so that was kind of fun seeing Travis work that way with the team and just kind of make something happen to get some data to work with.
Sure.
And a lot quicker to get a tin can than to rush out and get the really expensive equipment that would do similar.
Sure. Well, and we're located in the Uinta Basin in Utah, so if you want to wait 5 days for Amazon to try and deliver something or whatever, it's not like you can run down to a local, even electronics store.
And it's not like Amazon's going to have drone delivery there either.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's
nice.
Right. It might get close.
Hey, man, but there's some good bowling and some burgers and fries right down the street. That's the closest thing we...
Yeah, but honestly, the best thing, and I'm glad you touched on that, is, Travis is, I teased him because he used to have an old show that he told me about called Rocket City Rednecks, where he and a band of his other PhDs from Alabama would do all these crazy experiments with, whatever they could find, type of thing. I said, now, this is not Rocket City Rednecks, right? When he was breaking that stuff out. But that's the beauty of it, too, is because he can take, basic items and, has made a career out of being able to do that type of thing and utilize what he has available in order to, to test things out. It was cool. We saw it throughout, the time that he was here with us. So
there's a lot to be said for MacGyvering that shit.
Yeah,
nice. People who can MacGyver that.
Right.
And I've called Eric many times. I'm like, you're MacGyver with a Raspberry Pi Arduino and a soldering iron. That's pretty much what you are. And for those who don't know, that's just like nerd speak, and you want to Google that. But yeah, so he's MacGyvering shit is the way to go, especially with these guys out here. And I've seen, we're going to gloss over some stuff. Anyway, moving on to what I kept calling, the note I put down was balloon fail. So we come back, we're in the D block of the show now. So it's, we're almost at the end of the show. Halfway through anyway. And so we're like, all right, we put this first balloon up and then it was fail. So what are you guys thinking? Like, what could have caused this? Why is this happening? What did we do? What was done wrong? And then Bryant, please give us you can give us insight into what happened on the ground. Anyone?
Oh, sorry. So, Bueller. So this is actually interesting for me because I have gotten to play with weather balloons in a UFO investigative research. And I just kept waiting. I don't know. You guys can probably tell me. Did any of them blow up on you before that is not on camera? Maybe, maybe not.
So I wasn't there, during that part. Caleb was there. I was off with Eric doing some other stuff that I'm sure will show up later on.
Yes, it will.
But no one blew one out,
okay.
Fortunately. So there were no major injuries as far as the blowout. And, DJ, the first fail, that was the freaking wind. The wind picked up, blew that sucker. You have them tethered and you have it tied with, different lines and everything like that. And that one, the cool thing is when it took off in the air and flattened out, I can only imagine what the locals around were thinking was happening because it looked really amazing. The whole weather balloon UFO phenomenon type of thing. I've seen, footage of what it looked like when that thing flattened in the wind and took off. But, the first one, that was just weather.
And see, I think that's another thing that, like we said last week, with things not translating well on TV. On TV, you see this giant balloon, and they're talking, oh, the wind's picking up. Oh, yeah, the wind's really picking up. But, you really don't see that on TV. You're not there to experience the wind and see how that's affecting the balloon. So, that's definitely, I definitely knew that's what was happening was the wind, but you really couldn't see that on TV.
And I think that's what I was trying to attest to is these are finicky. People think, weather balloons have been around forever, but they're very fragile. The one I saw blew up in two researchers' face, left white powder all over their faces, and they were safe, so I was laughing very hard. But, they're very hard to deal with, and they're fragile, and the wind, like you said, can just easily destroy a whole experiment. So not surprising to me at all. I know how they work. I think it's when we get more into the 10,000 plus feet range where it starts getting interesting, and you can expand more on that sort of end of the experiment.
Bryant. So you know what? Let's go to balloon number 2. All right. So 1, the wind. Number 2. So what's okay. It just so happens that the calculations that they figured out are the exact altitude that the balloon kind of disappears. Well, sensors stop working and it just okay, I don't know where it happened. So tell us about the all right, I asked him this before and we didn't talk about it in too much detail, but where's balloon number 2?
That is a good question. If anyone watching this knows and has the equipment that was on it, we would love. You can have all the equipment. We just want the data off of it. Honestly, though, it was, and they tried to illustrate that a little bit in the episode. But, I mean, it had a GPS tracker, it had a homing beacon, it had all that different kind of stuff along with, various other items of equipment. And it hit where it stopped tracking on, everything that we had, and it happened to be at about 10,000 feet, which is, roughly about 5,000 feet above the ranch, which Travis's yarn and measuring stick apparently, pointed out as where he wanted to search. So that's strange, but yeah, to this day, we don't know what happened to the balloon. It's never shown up.
And see, I think something good with this episode, we saw with the balloon and the disappearance of the balloon, as well as with the drone malfunction. It was great to see that with both of these fails that aren't really fails because they're amazing, were done by outside people, by these third-party sources who are essentially experts in what they do, right? They're very familiar with what they were doing at the time. The drone operator, that was his drone. It's not something he went and bought at Best Buy and he just opened the box and didn't know how to use it. Like, that's his drone. Yeah. He knows how to use it and he's used it many times. He's a pro.
That guy was...
You mean Derek
he was pissed because he's never had an issue. He told us, you know what, he works for the fire department in Los Angeles and stuff. He's like, I've flown that thing through buildings that are full of rebar and concrete and everything, and I've never had a disconnection with the thing. He's like, this thing is state of the art, $35,000. I don't know how many times he said that to me, but it was frustrating to him, and he was not thrilled by the fact that he was brought all the way out, and basically we were able to utilize him for maybe 30 minutes, and then we sat and dinked around for hours and hours to try and get the thing to connect and never could.
Yeah,
and he's not like in on something. Yeah, of course. It's not like he's in on anything. This is just the way it was. I mean,
but the same thing with the balloon, right? I mean, this is somebody who's very familiar with weather balloons. They covered that on the show. This guy had launched several balloons. Was very familiar with the gear on the balloon. Said it never failed before. Now it failed. Right. So that was. I think that was really valuable to have in the investigation.
Absolutely.
Well, and he had flown them, in all kinds of weather and, up to 10,000 feet, and, much higher than where they were. And I can't remember. Did he say 100,000 feet? Is that
They said, Travis said it and he agreed.
I think so, yeah. If I remember correctly, again, I wasn't there for the, firsthand stuff. I've only seen footage of it. And
so you can go on YouTube and
see
that.
He was dumbfounded.
Yeah. Like, so the 100,000 foot thing. So there was a time a few years back where there was a number of YouTube videos that were coming out where people were flying those balloons to 100,000 feet. And then with the GPS and the geo-tracking, they would get the curvature of the Earth on camera, which is super cool. And then the balloon would pop and it would come back down to the ground. Parachute would come up, and then they would go and try to find where these things were. So yes, those things have been active to 100,000 feet multiple times. And what I feel is really cool about this, you got Derek from Hot Shots, right? So that's the company's name that came out and did the drone stuff. And then with Travis's friend, he's from University of Alabama. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Huntsville, Alabama. Right, Dr. Matt Turner. So these are people, like, in case you're wondering, Google is a tool you can use to Google them and then reach out to them on social media. There's nothing that's stopping you from asking them questions directly. They're not hiding anything. There's no conspiracy here. These are guys with a business. And obviously it's like, hey, if we're going on the show, we want people to understand our business is X, Y, Z, whatever it is. So I'm sure that if you ask these people questions, they're going to give you straight up answers, just like Brian's doing right now, which I really love. I feel like, you have a direct line to these guys. And so take advantage of it is kind of what I'm saying. And, I know we're going on and on here. And the last thing we should probably touch on, since we can't find the balloon and, if you have seen this balloon, please contact us. But the teaser of the next episode is, my notes in my head are like bones! !
Oh yeah.
So we're moving on to the teaser of the next episode, the last block of the show, and they're looking with the camera. So what's going on in the walls? Like, why is this happening in the walls, and why did they cover it up, so to speak?
I mean, what year was that particular house built? I'm curious of.
Bryant, do you know that? I don't know off the top of my head.
I want to say it was in the 30s, actually.
Okay.
The newest structure, by the way. I mean, it's the newest structure there, obviously, except for the command center and what's not.
And I don't want to say that this is, because clearly there's something within the walls that seems like it's a little weird. Obviously, we don't know what it is right now. But the house I grew up is built in 1910, and we had the same thing happen where we found a totally sealed off room that was not on the blueprints, that had no entrance, no exit. It was just walled off. This eventually became my childhood bedroom.
Wait, yeah. What?
Yeah, but so anyways, I'm just curious, because when I watched it, that's immediately what I thought of. Not in the basement, it was in the upstairs level. But I'm wondering if that was more common in that time period, in the early part of the century, where that would just happen and they kind of realize, we're just going to, build up this space. Or whether it's something entirely more mysterious and somebody killed somebody and burned the body and then blocked off the wall. But that's such a small, unless it's somewhere there's more bones or something. So,
well,
I
want to know, is this a common thing? Like, has this happened in the past, with these types of houses, like you're saying? Jason, you were going to say something. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, when I was watching it, I literally said, "This is horror movie shit," right before Travis said the same thing.
Yes. I think a lot of people were thinking that. I mean, in my head, I'm just thinking put the lotion in the basket or you get the hose again.
Exactly. Whenever I walk in that basement, that's exactly what I think.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, how are they living there? Like, how are they able to live in that, and not be freaked out all the time, Brian?
I don't know.
We haven't really gotten to know them very much on the show. We haven't really talked too much about them.
Yeah.
So,
and they haven't been here all that long. We had an elderly couple here previously that I won't get into all that different kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely one of those places that it just seems strange because it's just, as you saw, it's a big concrete box that doesn't seem like it has any purpose. And so I guess that's what kind of, piqued the interest and made Tom want to go punch a hole in it to see what it was.
Of course, Tom wants to punch a hole in it.
And this is the same house where, like, when the Shermans arrived, that there were locks on everything. Which, I mean, that was part of a huge part of their story when they expressed it back in the day, and which is super mysterious and having a lot of what is alleged as poltergeist activity. In terms of the groceries coming out of the cabinets after they put them in and things like that. So this is really curious. I'm digging this storyline because I'm very curious at what's happening and what's causing that kind of stuff, even if it's something normal or what was happening or whether it was malicious human actions. So I'm up for the tease.
Nice. So what would you guys want to see happen next? Like, do you want to spend more time in the the dungeon, so to speak? Or, is it something worth getting into more in depth, do you think?
I think you have
absolutely.
to find some sort of answer. You got to do
Yeah.
some testing on whatever's in there to figure out what it is.
Nice. Well, yeah, Brian, I love the stoic face. It's perfect. So the again, I want to get some questions because we get a lot of questions from the magical internet this week. But also, there is this thing that's going to happen in next week's episode, and it's a friggin' rocket. They decide so the what was it? The Redneck? What was the show? I'm sorry.
Rocket City Rednecks.
Rocket City Rednecks.
I never watched it, but he told me all about it.
Yeah. So he living up to the name, he built a rocket. So what do you guys think that the rocket idea is for? What's behind the idea of the rocket? I want to know if you guys have an idea, and then I feel like people online are going to chime in on that.
Well, we know what the idea is, but whether it's a good idea or not, I have my doubts. But it's along the same lines of the weather balloon test. But to go to his magical peak where he thinks this signal is coming from, to get the test equipment more directly targeted to this area with a rocket. And I don't know. I think there are better ways to do it, but I want to see the rocket happen before I judge.
Of course. Gotta see a rocket.
He's a rocket scientist.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he's using the skills, absolutely.
I mean, he is a rocket scientist.
He's going to deliver the payload one way or another.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
I want to know, though, and I hope people online, anyone who listens to this or watches this, I would love to know thoughts on it. Are there anything, atmospherically speaking, that happened between 5,000 and 6,000 feet? Is there something that everyone's kind of overlooking that we're just... and not to say that they don't know what they're talking about, but maybe it's just not in their specialty. Maybe somebody has some real insight. Like I know Ben, we talked about Ben McGee last week. He had some insight into some things that I think a lot of people just kind of glossed over. So I'd love to know if people have any ideas. Like, is there something that happens in that atmospheric range that we're just not aware of? Please, send that info in. We'd love to know about it and talk about it. But so now I got to get to this stuff, man, because Bryant, there's some questions here that I think you're going to enjoy answering. And you guys, Maureen, Jason, please chime in, man. We can totally, poke Bryant with sticks like, hey, man, tell us about this. Tell us about guns. And on that note, so will you get, so this is a question that we received on Twitter directly. Someone sent it to me directly, and they were saying, will Dragon get a better firearm for the team's protection? Like a Benelli Super 90 shotgun, an AK-47, or a Franchi Spas 12? I don't know what any of that means.
It's Franchi, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Nice.
Those are all nice guns. The guy knows his weapons. There's no getting around that. I'm really happy with what I have. I pray to God I don't ever have to use them because, that's the last thing I want to have to do. But, they're kind of one of those things that, for the protection of whoever's here and myself and whatnot, it's just one of those things. But yeah, hey, if he wants to hook me up with those guns, I'd be more than happy to use those in service to protection of the people on the ranch.
Nice. I mean, that was from Dan from Twitter, actually. And then I got, so Maureen and Jason and I kind of, people send stuff all during the week, and we kind of aggregated it all, put it together. And we had what else? Someone asked, Ryan asks, curious about Brian's personal experience with trespassers or incidences in and around the property. How often do people breach security, and what protocols might they have when dealing with this?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, fortunately, a lot of people are very respectful and they're curious, and their curiosity brings them to, near the front gate where we have big signs that says, don't pass here, you'll be trespassing. They'll stop, maybe take a picture, turn around and leave. Unfortunately, there are people that feel like it's their right because they're an enthusiast of something. That they can, break laws and trespass because they want to see what's going on or have an experience or whatever it is. And so, yeah, there's been times where, we've certainly had to, chase people off. it's never really gotten too terribly escalated. Most of the time, if they see themselves, if see someone coming, they beat and run away. And the good thing, as far as the protocols go, is you guys have seen a little bit of Caleb Bench. He's kind of really, he's really my right-hand guy. He's a really smart guy, but he's also happens to be a deputy with one of the local sheriff municipalities around here. And so, it's nice to have that resource where he's in contact with law enforcement, and, he legally, has the ability, to take action. And so, we really try to be nice to people as long as they're nice to us, and express the fact that, you're not supposed to be here. We've got a lot of important things going on, and you don't realize the impact you're having on the scientific research, and, it's dangerous here, and we don't know what's going on. And so, for the most part, people are respectful, but, as I mentioned earlier, as more notoriety has come to it with the TV show, there's a lot more people that are curious and aren't quite as respectful. And I just hope that they will realize that it's not just a matter of us wanting to hide things, because that's not doing that. It's a matter of it's messing with the science first and foremost, because we have all kinds of sensors, and when there's a human element added, you have to go vet that out. As well as, we don't want people getting injured or hurt here. Relax.
Got it. I mean, you guys, I'm sorry, Jason and Maureen, when I say you guys, and I keep deferring to you, both of you, when it comes to, UFO specialty, like expertise, because I don't have that. So what would you say, is a draw for people to kind of do this? I mean, are they thinking that they're going to solve the case, or what is the draw for people to kind of, go on private property and say, hey, I deserve to be here too. I'm a fan.
So I have to apologize. It sounds like there's a wolf behind me because the neighbor's dog is howling.
I just heard it.
Come on,
so
you're covering. That's on the ranch. That's on the ranch.
Yeah, on the ranch. That's not coming from my mic. Anyways, before there's any conspiracy theory coming out of the internet. I think we've all been really drawn to the ranch ever since George Knapp kind of released his book, and we got a hint of this, and it was wow, there's this one place that all this phenomena is happening. And so, we've all always wanted to go to the ranch because it's something that's intrigued us, that we've studied, that you want to see for yourself, what is causing it, and look into it and research. So that's basically, I think, what sends everyone. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that would actually go and try to trespass on private property like that. But a lot of people are, and think, it's like the people that are really, no offense, people who do this, but the people who are really stupid and try to trespass on Area 51. That's a little different. It's a military base. However, they're drawn to it and they know the danger, but they want to go anyways because they want to say they've done it and they've been there. So I think in terms of UFO research, it's just the curiosity is there. So people have been trying to get on the ranch forever since, before, when Bigelow basically has been running the property. That's when I think a lot of it started happening. But it's not surprising. And now, like you said, it's even bigger now. So,
Jason, dive into the psyche of people who are interested for me. Tell me what you think. I mean,
it's human nature. It's curiosity. Yeah. People are curious, and certainly people who are drawn to the unknown, to mysterious phenomena, they can go to places where they've read or heard from other people that it happens with some regularity, or when they have a physical place they can go to maybe get a glimpse of something strange, there's an appeal there. Whereas, if you want to see a UFO, what do? Well, I always tell people look up, but for people looking for more than that, they want to go to a place, a site of high strangeness. I see the appeal, I really do. But it's the same sort of thing that draws people to hotels that are allegedly haunted. People looking for that connection to the unknown, to be able to experience that for themselves. That's these places give that to them. And places like Maureen mentioned, Area 51 and Skinwalker Ranch, these places that are off limits, for some that's even more thrilling, to be able to go and maybe get a glimpse of somewhere they're not allowed to be.
You always want what you can't have, right?
Yeah. Right. And for the record, so people understand, Area 51 is an active military base, right? You guys get that. No one's getting to Area 51. I know we could keep going for a while with a lot of these questions, but there was a couple I really wanted to read that came from email. And one of them is from someone named Natty, who says, I have one question, and my 11-year-old daughter has another question. And I really want to read this because I love the fact that an 11-year-old is watching this. Her 11-year-old daughter is watching this. I think that's great. That's awesome. Please keep watching. So the question she has is, you all have mentioned the ranch behaves in a certain way. Can you elaborate on exactly what that means? And then I'm going to tell you the other question so you can kind of lead into it if you'd like. And she says her 11-year-old daughter's question is, what is the biggest danger at the ranch? Humans, trespassers, wild animals, or the paranormal? Bryant, please.
Yeah, those are both good questions. So as far as the ranch behaving, I know that was mentioned early on. I think really what that comes down to is it's almost like a curiosity level with whatever the phenomenon is here. I mean, we'll use that term because we don't know what it is. It interacts differently with different people, and it's almost like it seems that when someone new or somebody that comes in with, I know this sounds really crazy, but like a cavalier or, the wrong attitude, if you will, it seems to react differently to those people, and those are the kind of the people that are messed with a little bit more, that have, shown injury or illness or whatever it is. And when there's new people, it's almost like, hey, there's something new here to play with. So the activity seems to bump up again sometimes. It doesn't always happen. I mean, it took forever. For a good stretch before I ever had anything sort of experience that I couldn't just chalk up to as, that was kind of a little different, but I can, I have an explanation for that. It took a long time. Whereas other people have come, for a one-time visit and ended up in, having all kinds of weird things happen. So
I can attest to that because every time I was out there, I would come back to New York or back to the East Coast, and I had something going on. That I think the ranch kept on playing games with me, and I know that sounds weird to say, but I had doctors take a look at I can't explain that. So good luck with that.
Right.
Okay, great.
So. Yeah, it's strange. It's weird even hearing that come out of my mouth, that a place, it's a place, but whatever it is that's going on, there's definitely different people have different reactions, and it almost seems like it does have a personality. In fact, it almost has like a split personality. Some days it's the most wonderful place, and I feel amazing. Like it's the greatest feeling. It's hard to explain how much I love it. And then there's other days where all the hair on my body will stand on end, and I just want to get away. So it's almost as if it's, I don't know if it's, warring factions, whatever you want to call it. It's just it does definitely have a personality, and it reacts differently to different people. I'll leave it at that. And then the second question, I think, was, what's the biggest threat or the biggest danger?
Yes.
Gosh.
She says, what's the biggest danger on the ranch? Humans, trespassers, wild animals, or the paranormal?
Can I just say yes?
Yes.
Because,
it's a great answer.
It depends on the human. It depends on what animals we come across. I mean, we have massive mountain lions and rattlesnakes and stuff like that. People wonder why I carry a shotgun. It's not necessarily for people, but there's stuff here that will eat you. And then obviously the unknown, things that have happened to Tom and other people that have been associated with the ranch. So yeah, to pinpoint the most danger, I guess it depends on the day and what's out there in front of you. So, but that was a good question.
Nice. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other questions that people want to have answers to. And I mean, I would love to, talk to you all night, and I'm sure we all would. We could just sit here for hours again and just keep asking you questions. But I feel like, we should let you go and kind of we can chalk up any other questions that come. We can definitely get them, and hopefully, please, would you like to come back on with us another time?
Yeah, if you're not tired of me yet, you guys are great. It's been nice to be able, because I guess that's the best thing about this is being able to, explain a little bit, because what is edited in a 1 hour, whatever, what do they have, like 40 minutes of TV in that amount of time?
51:46 typically. But
yeah. I'll leave that to you. But it's nice to be able to give a little bit of insight. Not that it's a defending thing, but I know people are curious, and I would rather be able to at least explain things as opposed to just have a whole bunch of speculation that bounces back and forth. So yeah, if you have me back, yeah, I'd be happy to. You guys are great. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. This is great. I mean, you guys, thank you for the time, Bryant. This is awesome. I mean, seriously, we appreciate it. And I know you guys, Jason Allard and Maureen, feel the same way. I can't say that. I can't speak for you guys.
No, absolutely.
We feel the same way.
It's always great getting that other perspective, because, I mean, Jason and I have both had experience on the other end where we've had to explain 45 edited minutes of TV as well. And it's always good to hear from the people you're getting a very edited clip of many weeks and years of research. So, it's fascinating to hear your point of view. So thank you for being willing to talk to us.
Oh, I'm happy to. Like I said, TJ's, I consider him a friend. He's a big reason why the TV show even happened. I mean, he was the thorn, he was the burr under the saddle, if you will, that kept going. And, it turned out, and, so I'm happy, and you guys are great. And, I'm happy to talk to you guys anytime. So thank you.
Awesome. Sure. We'll do this again. Very cool. So, I mean, thanks again. I'm glad you were able to, spend the time with us. And so if people have other questions, there's two ways to reach us as of right now, unless Jason has some other ones that he hasn't told me about yet. You can email at, Jason, you know what? Why don't you give the info about where people can send info to?
Yeah, sure. So the easiest is email. So contact@rogueplanet.tv. You can always email us there. Any questions about the most recent episode, or just anything in general about Skinwalker Ranch, or anything mysterious at all. We love hearing about personal stories or just any question about anything strange. We love that. So send anything our way at contact@rogueplanet.tv. You can always hit us up at Twitter too, at Skinwalker Pod. So those are the best places to send us questions each week. But we're all individually on social media too, so feel free to hit us up on Facebook or our individual Twitters as well.
Absolutely. And so on next week's episode of the Skinwalker Debrief, we're talking about episode 4 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch on History Channel. I got to make sure the plug is in there. And the title of that show is called High Strangeness. And so next week, our guest will be none other than Thomas Winterton, the ranch superintendent. So Thomas will be here just like just like Bryant. Again, thank you. Please, if you have any questions or whatever, send them our way. And, hopefully Tom will be just as open as Bryant is to answering all this stuff. I mean, I know he will be, but I'm just saying. But yes, thank you all for joining us. And we hope you tune in next week. So make sure you don't miss it.